I'm in love with desperate men with desperate hands, walking in second-hand shoes, searching for God and hearing God and hating God. I'm a desperate man buckled with fear. I'm a desperate man who demands to be listened to, who demands to connect. I'm a desperate man who denounces the dullness of money and status. I'm a desperate man who will not bow down to accolade or success. I am a desperate man who loves the simplicity of painting and hates galleries and white walls and the dealers in art, who loves unreasonableness and hot-headedness, who loves contradiction, hates publishing houses, and also I am Vincent van Gogh, Hiroshige, and every living, breathing artist who dares to draw God on this planet.
Billy Childish has released over 100 albums and been in half a dozen bands. His current lineup is the Buff Medways. He's executed over 1,500 paintings and published more than 30 collections of poetry via Hangman Books, his own press. He's turning his autobiographical novel, My Fault, into a screenplay for the celebrated American filmmaker Larry Clark. Billy was born in 1959 in Chatham, Kent, and still lives there, just about making a living. For 25 years he's been going to the same hairdressers, Under the Bogs as it's known locally.
I mean, I paint on Sundays, so it's a good joke, I suppose, especially since it's a true joke. But that's what I do. I paint on Sundays at my mum's in Whitstable. Quick escape. Yay. My mum's lived here for about 12 years or so, and we always used to come in when we were kids. I used to paint for 4 or 5 weeks solid every summer, up until my early 20s. And then I had to change that, and I worked out I'd paint every week. And I had to go somewhere to paint, because I've got to go somewhere else. So I come here and paint on 1 day a week. I'll go to work if you like. Sometimes I come back and she's cleared all the stuff off and moved everything about, because this is my mum's front room, you know, front bedroom. A lot of my painting is just keeping my hand in, so I never bother waiting for ideas. That would be a waste of time. Ideas aren't anything to do with it. The material's all there, you just got to try and carry on. The idea is painting, not having ideas about painting. I mean, you've got the world that surrounds you. My mum and Juju and Kira and Huddy, and I paint the people and the world around me. In many ways, I sort of like to look on myself as amateur in everything I do. The amateur does things for love and belief, not for the mortgage. I don't do things that I don't want to do.
I like the way the music's developed. It started off as something quite basic, but now it's sort of something like it's still basic, but it's just got sort of, I don't know, it's just got some sort of expert in its basicness.
Most people can't do it in their 42 because they're trying to do it on drugs or alcohol, or they're trying to do it as a career. I don't do it as a career. I don't do it as drugs and alcohol, and I only play when I want to play. The energy I use is the same as when I used to mime in front of the mirror with my toy Beatles guitar. Well, aren't you going to give us a hand?
You managed to pull it by yourself?
Doesn't have casters. Tracy Emin, my girlfriend in the 80s, was complaining that my paintings and my writing and my music was stuck, and that I was stuck as an individual. What if I damage your sofa? But the main reason being that I didn't want to go to sort of like contemporary art galleries and watch people take cocaine, really, was the reason I was stuck, because I wouldn't agree with a worldview that was cool. And Charles latched onto it as a good title for a group of painters.
Stuckism is an art group that Billy, Childish and myself founded in 1999.
Well, there's a feeling in this world that causes unrest. Your ambition and success is what I detest.
It's to advocate contemporary figurative painting and oppose the dominance of conceptual art. We think the main flaw with conceptual art is it doesn't really have any decent concepts to it at all. Billy left the Stuckists group last June. I think the final straw came when we all had to walk down the road holding paintings above our head for some press photographer. And that isn't Billy's style. It's not Chatham cool to walk down the road holding a painting above your head.
That's why I'm not in the group. I don't like his style. And I don't like the Stuckists.
So you're not a Stuckist?
No, well, there's nobody in the Stuckists apart from Charles who's in the Stuckists for any other reasons. Then it's easy, because they think someone might sort out an exhibition, so it's not done through belief. If it's not done through belief, I can't be in it. Oh, you made me die. There you are, game one. That's a copy of the first album. That's the Pop Rivets in '77. That's our first show. That's young me. I learned to play guitar in a punk rock group, playing a Bo Diddley rhythm. You know, and I sort of like taught myself to paint by looking at Van Gogh paintings and Munch paintings. I mean, what's the point of changing? You know, like you just sort of like you move in and out. You know, that's sort of like sometimes I tighten everything up and then I break it down again. You know, you got Van Gogh and people, they don't worry about originality. What they worry about is doing what they do and copying to learn. My local art school wouldn't look at my work even because I'm unqualified. So I ended up only being able to go to the dockyard. And I just did 600 drawings or so, you know, filling sketchbooks of the people I was working with. Everything was based on the dockyard in Chatham, or was. Now it's just based on shopping for cheap rubbish.
Where are we?
This is under the bogs, the barbers at Chatham. That's what we call it.
I've never seen anywhere else like it.
Well, no, I suppose not. You know, it doesn't seem strange to me because I've always come here. Old Fred was one of the barbers here and he used to be a painter. I mean, he just obviously saw things that he liked and painted them, you know, enjoyed painting. You know, this is one of the only cultural spaces left in Chatham. I went to St Martin's to be with all of my brothers and sisters who believed, and I'd escaped from the dockyard and all the working class oiks I'd gone to school with, who didn't understand these things and weren't sensitive and weren't interested in art, and I went to meet all of the people who where I naturally belong, and walked in there on the first day and realised I was slightly mistaken.
I first met Billy in 1980 at St Martin's. Billy's got a big thing about art school and maybe not sort of fitting in. I think he liked dropping in, but he wasn't there, as it were. He was in a band then, the Milkshakes. Seemed to have other sort of much more interesting things going on elsewhere.
I had to leave. I just couldn't stand it. They painted big abstract expressionist pictures and didn't, well, it wasn't anything to do with what I was interested in at all. Welcome, the night watchman. the floor polisher, the dole queue boy, and the policeman in the rain. Welcome the salesman who never sells, the dentist who hates teeth, the docker without a dock, and the robber of car hubcaps. Welcome lovers who cannot love, lickers of bright green ice lollies, motherless children, and the smashers of car wing mirrors. Welcome acne, toothache, kebab shop owners, used car salesmen, and buyers of second-hand fridges. Welcome the sailor from a faraway...
I don't think artists are special. I don't believe in special people. No, in truth, you see, we're all special, or none of us are special. There isn't any hierarchy of specialness in the world.
Yeah. Who's the man?
I think it's me. It's over the River Medway, and the cherry blossoms on Jackson's Field. So Chatham would be down here. Which ones are yours?
The avenue of trees, the chap carrying the water.
The avenue of trees. I do an avenue of trees a lot. I like avenues of trees. Yeah, I'm always painting them. The vines, I do that.
Some people think that is vines.
Gotta get inside that boy's mind.
Where's the vines?
It's in Rochester. I suppose it's like got like that feeling like there's some Monk pictures with a little road, and there's Van Gogh pictures with little roads. There's always these little roads things. There's this little sketch of it over here. Well, it's not really a sketch, it's just a thing I knocked up. This is an imagination. Honey's coming up. Hello.
I got my jigsaw puzzle.
You've got your jigsaw, what have you got?
It was a simple plan, a plan to save people money by making their finances work together. It meant some homeowners could reduce the length of their mortgage by around 5 years, while others could save £600 a year. And if everyone had Open Plan, the whole country would be billions better off. Open Plan from Barclays.
Enjoy the 14-day sale. Now save an incredible £600 on this elegant three-seater sofa. Just one of the amazing deals in Court's 14-day sale.
If you're like me, you hate having your teeth out for long. Real cleaning doesn't come much quicker than this baby. With Sterident 3 minutes, active oxygen bubbles go everywhere, cleaning more effectively than any toothbrush. 3 minutes of powerful antibacterial activity, and my teeth feel spotless. Oh, yes. Sorry, mustache. Got to catch the morning canoes. Sterident 3 minutes. Get your teeth into life.
Now, when you pay with Barclaycard, you can collect Nectar points everywhere. Collect Nectar everywhere. Enjoy the rewards sooner with Barclaycard.
Enjoy every curve.
Millions of women like us have bladder weakness. With Poise pads, we carry on as normal because Poise are so slim, so discreet, and unlike towels, they're specifically designed for bladder weakness. So the super absorbent core locks liquid in, so you stay dry and feel fresh and confident with Poise pads. Look for Poise trial offers now at most Boots and other leading stores.
How's yours?
Really tasty, crusty roll.
Hey Stu, look, 28-inch nightcam, video, a DVD, all that for £800. That's good, isn't it?
No, it's not actually.
Shout 28-inch TV package for under £650. That's Comet Sense.
What do you have in your sandwich?
I'd egg.
With Summerfield mega deals buy finished Powerball 3-in-1 tablets for half price.
Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning, on an ever spinning wheel, like a snowball down a mountain, on a carnival balloon, like a carousel is spinning, running rings around the moon. When you knew that it was over, were you suddenly aware that the autumn leaves were turning to the color of her hair?
A to Z.
Sunday isn't just for painting. It's a family day for Billy, his second wife Julie, Kira his ex-girlfriend, and their son Huddy.
Your fingertips. To have a companion, it would not be possible to have them separate from what I do. You know, it's like a bit of a package deal, isn't it? I do my painting, I do my writing, and there's not a great separation. To the extent that it can drive girlfriends mad.
You wank.
That's a painting from the early 80s. And this would be me and Kira in bed. And this would be me, Sheila and Tracy. I was going out with Tracy, but I married Sheila.
Why was that?
I got on very well with Sheila as a sort of like friend and person I could talk to, and I didn't with Tracy.
I want to go to sleep.
Doesn't bother me.
That must have been a shock for Tracy that she was your girlfriend and you went off and married Sheila.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell her, you see, because I always tell everyone the truth and was very clear about that, which I thought meant I gave me licence to do what I liked, which was another very adolescent attitude. But Tracy didn't like what I used to write about on my painting. She didn't like this sort of like confessional stuff of my work.
I really like Tracy, but she only got into the painting through Billy. You know, she's got right to the top. She's very sort of... She's got the gift of the gab, actually. Yeah.
Where's your photo?
Are you into still writing things like that, or?
I do a bit of everything. I do portraits of family and friends, and then... Yeah, then make something up, something that's in my head anyway.
Yeah, mine's
a mixture of both, really.
Yeah. Mine's just start off the top of my head and then stick it down on paper. If it works, it works.
Yeah. I met Kira when she was about 15 when we were playing in Brussels with the milkshakes, and then a couple of years later she came to live in England, and we lived together for about 12 years. The last time we slept together, Huddy decided that that would be a good time to come into the world. Here's one of Huddy having his bath with his mum. It's someone saying hello, isn't it, I suppose? Huddy, in fact. That's, I don't know. I've got a tooth missing. How old am I? 8 or 9 or 10? I've got my flaming spear. This is one of the handmade guns from the early 70s that we made, and they were made them in my dad's garage. We had a few accidents with the firing pin working like a bullet, and you know, they'd fire occasionally. When my old man left home when I was about 6 or 7, there was lots of his paints and brushes, and I used all those, so I started doing oil paints quite early on. Like, if he ever came home, he'd do a fit because we'd ruined his stuff. You know, he'd been there for 3 years and he'd wonder what had happened to his brushes or something.
Where's the opener?
On the training board.
Take my shoes off and take them off now. Get it up, Parson!
My early work was very graphic and pulled together, and but
But I think that was because I was alcoholic and drinking so much.
I know he went to the pub, and when he come here on Sunday, they had to get back to go to the pub whenever, you know. But I didn't know he got drunk every night.
I was living out a lot of the things I'd learned off my father, like having multiple girlfriends, drinking large amounts of whiskey and pleasing myself. And I'm thankful to John, my father, who never really learned a lesson about it, but I certainly learned it from him, that it isn't a way to live. And I think that is John's gift to me. Me and my wife went all over town. Everywhere we went, now the people turned us down in a bourgeois town.
I came to Chichester after my business went into liquidation about 4 years ago. Well, I spent most of my life being a graphic designer, although I've always been a painter as well. Even when they were very young, I had exhibitions. So it must have had some influence on Billy. A lot of his way of doing things probably come from me. And I tried very hard before I became more separated from my family to encourage them. But I behaved rather badly and didn't give the time and care and love and attention to them that I should have done. And I spent more and more of my time away from them in London. They were living in Kent at the time. And I possibly drank too much. I travelled a lot. I had all the trappings of success, but I didn't handle it well.
The only time he actually said he loved me was when I was 22 and I beat him up and punched him and he fell down the stairs and was nearly knocked out, and he came around and he said, "I still love you," which I, at that time, thought was a bit late.
I'm not quite sure what his real skill is, apart from, as I say, his writing, particularly in poetry, is, I think, very interesting. I don't know much about his painting.
I planned killing him before that, and I had the chance when I beat him up, and I didn't do it to sort of finish it. And I realised that that enabled me to move on from having very negative thoughts.
So tell me who's that right? John the Revelator. Who's that right? John the Revelator. Who's that right? John the Revelator. Like the book of the seven seals.
My friend at school wanted to do Kung Fu because Bruce Lee craze at the time, and he needed someone to go with him, so I went along and I got interested in all the Tai Chi and Taoist stuff when I was about 14.
Say the Spirit of God in every man reside. Now tell me who...
Practiced yoga for the last 10 years or so. I'm very interested in Buddhist and Christian thought, you know, on a humanist level. And I use prayer as well, yeah.
You've done the Van Gogh chair.
That's a fantastic painting, that chair. When he walked over your roof.
He did indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walked up the A2, which took him to London from Ramsgate.
This is New Road, under the cherry blossoms. That's the one that runs through Chatham. It's funny actually, because that must be the route old Van Gogh took when he walked to London and from Ramsgate. But it's not meant to be Van Gogh walking down there today. So I always thought it's quite funny, imagine him walking through Chatham.
I think going to an excess, which Billy did through drinking, sometimes through sex, through his behaviour with other people, it doesn't make you happy. It makes you very unhappy, and unless you're a complete numbskull, you start to think, what has gone wrong? And it can take you very deeply into yourself. You reach experiences that people wouldn't normally arrive at if they led a more balanced and ordered life. So the sinner can become the saint.
A bit off the top as well. I met Julie in Seattle, poetry reading and a blues show, and we kept in touch for a couple of years, and then we decided to get together.
You want to learn a raisin?
Julie's got black and American Indian blood, and Italian, but also her mum's from Ramsgate, so, you know, who knows. And it's interesting, someone saw this was in an exhibition, and one person said, oh, you're much prettier than he paints you. And another person saw it and said, you can tell he loves you from that painting. So you see, people see anything they like, really. You have to look and see, rather than just, you know, browse with pictures. I like the way you hang the pictures in here, you know, just all piled up.
Yeah, just poke them anywhere.
Yeah.
You gonna have some up top?
Just blend it in a bit.
Is this nearly finished now?
I think it's finished. Well, you know, finished for the time being, till I had another thought about it. As far as making a career out of anything, I do too much work, you know. I don't have an agent and I don't have a gallery or anything, but that's because I think I don't want them, but I do want them. But I want ones who understand what I do and believe in what I believe. Okay. And I don't see myself as some sort of a weird nutter. I see myself doing what's necessary. You know, I think no, I don't think I'm an outsider. And if I am, I don't deserve to be.
The art show's back next Saturday at the earlier time of 8:30. And if you fancy being an artist, find out more at channel4.com/ideasfactory. Coming up next, do you fancy Hugh Grant or Alan Rickman? They are the husband totty on offer in Sense and Sensibility.
I need someone.
Now, controversial Chatham artist Billy Childish brings us his own very personal picture of Kent.
He's a poet, a novelist, a musician, but first and foremost, he's an artist. He paints pictures. These days, most modern artists seem to be conceptual artists. They do things like put pickled sharks in tanks, or put their unmade beds in art galleries. Not Billy. Call him old-fashioned, but he just paints. He's been turning out pictures for some 30 years, whether he sells them or not, and usually he doesn't. The art establishment doesn't like him, and he doesn't like them. He's lived and worked in Chatham all his life. His name is Billy Childish, and he was born in 1959.
From 1959, started school in 1965.
You may not have heard of him, but those in the know have. Tracy Emin makes a tent called Everyone I Ever Slept With, 1963 to 1995. The most prominent name is Billy Childish. The White Stripes appear on top of the pops. Singer Jack White writes, "Be Childish" on his arm. Billy publishes a book called Poems to Break the Hearts of Impossible Princesses. Kylie Minogue calls her next CD Impossible Princess. In the sleeve note she thanks all those I had the pleasure of working with and learning from. First name on the list, Billy Childish. Billy is going to make 5 short films specially for us with his Super 8 camera. Along the way he's going to tell us the story of his life, how his art is inspired by both the place where he lives and the people who live there. It's unconventional and it's controversial. This is A Picture of Kent by Billy Childish.
I live just over the back from the River Medway. I've always painted my family and friends and where I live, and all my work relates to those things. The local area is sort of a very big thing in my work. It's sort of grounded in the fact that I live here and was born here. I'm sort of like born in Chatham, All Saints Hospital, which is now a housing estate. I'm not sure exactly why the river always turns up in my paintings, but I think it's because of this view, because I walk across here very often if I'm going to Rochester or, you know, want to get out and get some air, and it's always this view. And it seems to turn up in all the pictures. This is a mermaid sitting on the banks of the river. There's Rochester Bridge, a London sailing barge, and this is a coelacanth. You know about coelacanths, they're the living fossil. And there's a mermaid there, and I figure like, I don't know, breastfeeding the coelacanth. You know, why? I've got no idea at all. I drew a mermaid and the coelacanth turned up. I don't bother having ideas, because artists only have rotten ideas. I'm a clever artist and don't have any. I just use what's there, and this is what's here. I left school when I was 16, and I applied to go to art school, but because I got no qualifications I wasn't allowed into an art school. The local art college was Medway College of Art and Design, and they refused to even let me sit in an interview. So then I decided to go to try the dockyard as a stonemason, because I thought I could do some carvings and things down there. And so I went and did that instead. I was already painting at home and I was already drawing, and of course I took my sketchbook into work and just draw in the tea huts and draw the people I was working with. There's a chap asleep. I think we started at 7:30. And then you went for your first tea break. You see, so it's a good opportunity to do some drawing. There's a man who must be in charge of something. Or he's angry that he isn't. You clock in, have tea break, then you go out onto site. And that could take you a while to get out onto site, so when you got there you had a tea, you know, have a cup of tea when you get out onto site. Cranes aren't worth bothering with too much. They only need a couple of little marks. And then if there's a bit of time left in the morning, you do a bit of work before lunch. After lunch, it's not much point really starting anything, because you're going to go home at 3:30. So the old lags just used to sit around complaining about people who are on the dole and scrounging and didn't know what days hard work was. I got about 600 drawings together, and I applied to go to an art school in London. I thought, well, I'll try on my own somewhere else. And I'd heard of this place called St Martin's. And they accepted me without qualifications. They used to have a thing they called the Genius Clause, and it's for students who showed outstanding artistic potential, they called it. Then I had to apply to the local council for a grant. I was 16 or just coming on 17, and they said that I couldn't go to a college outside of my region and get a grant for it. I had to go to my local college, which was the one that would refuse to look at my work. So I was packed off to Medway College of Art, but within 2 weeks I'd been expelled from the printing department and the 3D department because they said I had an attitude of total rejection. And they decided that I wasn't a genius at all, and I was put on probation for the next year. So at the end of the year I applied independently again to St Martin's to do BA painting and got in on this clause again. And then I was there for quarter of a term and decided I didn't like these big, boring, piss-coloured abstract expressionist paintings that everyone had to paint who went there. So I walked out. In the meantime, the dreaded Thatch came into power, and I got called into the Dole office and told that they were going to have a crackdown on people like me, and I had to get a proper job. And since I'd already had a proper job in the dockyard for 6 months, I knew that I didn't want one of those. So I went back to St Martin's School of Art and applied to go in the paint department and got in again. But then I never really got on with any of them there. I refused to paint any pictures within the art school, which upset them. And they didn't believe I was really painting pictures at home. And I published poetry that they said was obscene. And they expelled me in 1981. And I then spent 15 years on the Dole painting, which suited me fine.
I became an expert. Very important, those finishing touches. One dot wrong and it would be a failure. If you want something to be real, you have to make it more real. I had to paint something and the bandstand was waiting, so we painted the bandstand. I think it looks like it. Oh, it's got a bandstand, it's got some trees and a person. What more do you need? To get nearer to truth, you have to bend things. If you want something to be real, you have to make it more real. So my painting of the bandstand is more like the bandstand than the bandstand is.
Everyone ready?
We run this thing called the Chatham Super 8 Cinema. We make films with old busted equipment and put on little shows. In this one, my friend Simon's holding the camera.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from you down to the page and then do a little bit of detail of Billy. So
this one's about teaching myself to draw in Chatham Dockyard when I was a 16-year-old kid.
I think Super 8 just has a quality, a kind of, it's, a lot of people say it, a dream-like quality. And when you sit people in a room and, you roll the projector, it's a ceremony. So it's, you're entering into another world.
The trouble with some of this old Super 8 gear is it's liable to break down. No, it stopped working. Is it? Yeah, it stopped working. Yeah, I know what to do, I think. Started working again the other day after a while. Is there meant to be a screw in there, do you know?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Things I do to stop getting bored is to make recordings. I'm doing this one at home with my wife Julie and my friend Wolf. And we use this old Revox Valve tape recorder which we've used since 1977 when I was in my first group in Chatham. Punk rock came along and some people saw me wandering around the streets and said, "Do you want to sing in our group?" So we formed the Pop Rivets. And then punk rock by 1980 was very, very tired. And New Romanticism, which is really what we've still got now, the worst style of music ever, was rearing its ugly head. So we thought, well, let's play some more rock and roll music. So we formed the Milkshakes, recorded a dozen or so albums, went on with the Mighty Caesars and recorded a dozen or so albums. That took us up to the end of the 80s. Then we formed the Headcoats and recorded a dozen or so albums, maybe 2 dozen. And that took us through to the end of the 90s. And I formed the Buff Medways and we recorded several albums. It all mounts up to 100 or so LPs later and still not making a penny. The Buff Medways play their own particular brand of music which is called dustbin mod. We invented this style ourselves, so it's mob music but played in a dustbin. Everything we do sort of linked into the local scene, like the Buff Medways are named after a chicken that was called the Buff Medway that we were trying to help a friend get reinstated while we were trying to raise money through the gigs to help with the breeding program for this extinct chicken that died out in the 40s. And then the new album's called the Medway Wheelers because of the cycle club at the same name that my mother was a member of. And she always used to tell me stories about cycling around on this fixed wheel push bike. This is my mum, June. Hello, Mum.
Hello, Billy.
The album's called Medway Wheelers and the title song is Medway Wheelers as well. And
It's a song about my mum's life on the open road on a Hobbs Supreme push bike. We made a film, Super 8 film that goes with it, and Mum calls it, said, oh, you're going to show my film.
She joined the Medway Wheelers in June 1944. She grew up in Wigmore, wanting to see the big outdoors. Cycling on a Hobbs Supreme, lightweight made to measure. Medway Wheelers, Medway Wheelers.
I wish you well. Cheers. What are you doing here?
Cleaning around.
Oh, you're the cleaner?
Yeah.
I think paintings are nice if they've got a story in them. I don't like things that don't have stories because I think they're a bit boring.
Yes.
Now this one's two girls having a wash in the River Medway, which is a very unwise thing to do because it's a very muddy and dirty river.
Oh, that's in Kent, isn't it?
Yes, where I live. Yeah, well, Chatham.
Is it? You in Chatham?
Yes.
Oh.
My real name's William Hamper. In '77, I was going to do a punk rock. Well, I did a punk rock fanzine. I called myself Gus Claudius because I liked that. My mum was going to call me Gus, and I liked the television programme. So I called myself Gus Claudius, and my mate said, "You're not Gus Claudius, you're Billy Childish." This poem is called The Billy Childish. I am Billy Childish, ex-drunk and compulsive masturbator, late-night vomiter of good liquor, kisser of purple-lipped women, writer of poems celebrating the emptiness of my love. Well, I was diagnosed dyslexic when I was about 28, but I took no notice of that and still write poems and novels to express what I feel. That's sort of like So We Know Where We Stand. One of the poems is about what happened when I left art school. When I was thrown out of St Martin's in 1981, I moved back to Chatham. Well, really, I'd never left Chatham. I was still living down there because I couldn't afford to live in London. And I had a little house over, student house we lived in, cheap rent over in Rochester Street. And I had all my paintings hanging up there. And that's when I met Tracy Emin. She was a fashion student at Medway College of Design. And she wanted to be a painter, and she'd seen my paintings around my house and was sort of like very enthusiastic and encouraging about my work and wanted to, you know, get to know me and be friendly. And I was of a like mind, so we spent some time together. And I used to run this little press called Hangman Books. Well, I still do. A little, just self-publishing small pamphlets and helping other people make books. And Tracy helped me run that. And then about 85, 86 we split up. And that was a time that we, about 86 or 87, she went to the Royal College. And she became much more interested in the art world, which I always detested. Yeah, I wrote this song called Art or Arse, which is actually just a little, you see, like conceptual, it's about conceptual art. And conceptual art's okay if it's a joke and it's funny, but most conceptual art isn't very funny.
Scottish fish in the tank. Some say it's art, others think it's wank. Dave Stewart says he's doing quite well. You've got to make your art and you've got to sell. Is it art or is it arse? Is it art or is it arse?
Tracy's always, it's a very interesting thing really, because like, I write this very confessional work, which she sort of like later sort of like adopted as a style for her art. You know, she actually says that her work is based in literature and writing, and that's true. It's based in my literature and writing. But she doesn't mention that bit, where it comes from. But that's okay, you know, she's a bit angry because I'm not obedient enough.
Finished, Ian?
No.
I expect Gran's waiting for her supper.
Me and Tracy remained friends up until 1999, and then she was sort of like, I think she was nominated for the Turner Prize, and she asked me not to speak to any newspapers about her or the origins of her work, which I was unable to do, so she then told me we were no longer friends. And I said, fine. The Professor of Confessional Art. Sensitive people notice that my work is about the love of nature. Only the vulgar believe it to be foul-mouthed. An ex-girlfriend simply wants it banned and demands that all of my future writings be submitted to her lawyers for vetting. I will decide if you are allowed to publish or not. Nothing of what happened will be known whilst I am still alive, she promises. Fine, I answer, and I mean it, and sincerely wish her victory. This is the dockyard down here, and I really like the Victoria Gardens at the end of my road, and you always get the cherry trees in blossom, and you're looking down from the big green hill onto the river. And that's my favourite view, because Chatham's actually a very beautiful landscape. It's just unfortunate it's full of people and hideous buildings. What do I love about Chatham? I love the landscape. I love the river, I love its unpretentiousness, and it is what it is. What I hate about Chatham is very much its lack of culture, the fact that it is just what you get. But the Pentagon was the first big mistake, then the one-way system was the next big mistake. Every improvement in Chatham has ruined it.
Set the posture and allow that top arm to float up.
Well, my interest in yoga probably dates way back. I've always been interested in religion since I was a kid.
Be strong in the standing leg. Bring the leg back to the centre.
Yoga is a very complex thing, but what people usually imagine yoga is just the asana, which is one aspect of yoga, which is making the body into little pretty shapes. It's trying to be within the moment and dealing with things as they are now. And you know, I'm a hippie kid at heart, so yoga's fine for me. on the viaduct above Railway Street. And this church in the background features in lots of my paintings for some unknown reason. They seem to have a blood red road in them as well, which I'm not really sure about, but that's what turns up. The church wants to be in it, so it is. I don't actually ask many big questions about it. The road wants to be red, the church wants to be there, a girl needs to be standing there. She needs not to have any clothes on. I mean, it's allowing the picture to paint itself. And then they also seem to have prostitutes in them. So you work it out. So my paintings of Chatham are sort of done in some sort of parallel universe. I've made my own life and my own version of Chatham. There are things that appear in my paintings and my poems and my novels which aren't at all beautiful and maybe a bit dark and disturbing, that they need to be spoken about so that you can free yourself from them. Well, when I was 9, my father had already left home, and we were on I was on holiday with my mother and brother, and my mother couldn't afford to pay for the rent on this little chalet we stayed in Sea Salter, so she teamed up with a widower called and his daughter, and we ended up having to sort of like bunk up together, and I was sexually abused over several days, and that harmed me quite a lot. No, I don't really sort of like fancy going into the details of it. You know, it can be, you can read about it. I find some things, maybe that explains it, you know. I can write it and I can have people know it, and I have to have people know it, but I can't just talk to somebody about some of those things in a way that feels respectful to myself. I can't do that. When you're abused, it's sort of like it colours lots of other aspects of your life. I mean, the worst abuse was my father's abuse to me, which wasn't sexual but was mental. Never spoke to me or said a kind word to me. He'd bang me and my brother's heads together, you know, sneak up behind us and crack our heads together from when I was about 2. I remember that happening. So I was quite pleased when he left home. I had to go through 15 years of alcoholism and 7 years of intense psychotherapy, many Buddhist retreats, practicing yoga, writing 40 collections of poetry, writing 3 novels and painting thousands of pictures to sort of like get it out of my system a bit. I've written a couple of songs about sexual abuse, one called Paedophile, which was an instrumental which had a photograph of my abuser on the front cover, which it had from when I was a kid, of him playing an acoustic guitar, and that was released as a 45, and I wanted to find out where he lived so I could post him one so he could open it up in the morning and see his photograph on it. And then there's a song called Every Bit of Me, which is specifically vocally about that abuse. It's a song with lyrics, and that's about sexual abuse.
He was 40 years old inside my dreams. I was 9 years old and feeling unclean. He told me it was a secret to keep to myself. I wanted to hate him, but I hate myself. With every bit of me. With every bit of me. With every bit of me. With every bit of me.
It's good to express yourself, I think. My work's sort of influenced by where I live, really, and the people I know, and that comes out in the paintings and in the music, like with the Buff Medways, in the poetry and the novels, and, you know, sometimes it's good things, but a lot of it's unpleasant stuff as well. After all the shouting and all the music and the writing and painting, the most important thing is to arrive at some peace with yourself. And that ultimately, the work is all about forgiveness. And I forgive my father, who won't talk to me. I forgive Tracy, who won't talk to me. I forgive my sexual abuser, whether he's alive or dead, I don't know, I can't find out. My job is forgiving everyone, and that's the work.
Very good. And what do you feel we're at today?
I just told you.
Help us to create a picture of Britain online by sending your digital photos to...
Went back to St Martin's School of Art and applied to go in the paint department and got in again. But then I never really got on with any of them there. I refused to paint any pictures within the art school, which upset them. And they didn't believe I was really painting pictures at home. So my painting of the bandstand's more like the bandstand than the bandstand is.
Everyone ready?
We run this thing called the Chatham Super 8 Cinema. This thing called the Chatham Super 8 Cinema. Super 8 Cinema. We make films with old busted equipment and put on little shows. In this one, my friend's son is liable to break down. No, it's stopped working. Is it?
You know, you roll the projector, it's a ceremony, so it's, you know, you're entering into another world.
Just holding the camera.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from you down to the page and then do a little bit of detail of Billy. So. Everyone ready?
We run this thing called the Chatham Super 8 Cinema. Super 8.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from you. Everyone ready?
We run this thing called the Chatham Super 8 Cinema.